Hi, so today I'm going to be answering some questions that I got on my very first rug video. The main question I've gotten was how wide to make the strips, and that makes a lot of difference how thick the fabric is and how thick you want your rug. So here we've got just a regular jersey knit t-shirt, and then we've got one that's very thin fabric, so that's going to need to be a wider strip. And then we have a very thick fleece, and this is going to be a thicker fabric, so we're going to need a thinner strip. As you can see, this rug, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it's a lot more thin, whereas this rug is a more thick, cushiony rug. Okay, so I'm currently working on a thinner rug here, and so my strips are going to be more narrow, from anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches, depending on the thickness of the fabric. And also here I have where it's on the selvage, where it was already folded over. Instead of ripping that out, I cut that and use it. That's only about 1 inch, and also that would be like 2.5, 3 centimeters. Same with these, only about 6 centimeters. So now for my thicker rug, I'm going to be using wider strips so that it's a thicker fabric to work with. This one is more like 3.5 to 4 inches wide, 9 to 10 centimeters. This one that was very thin is doubled over, and so that's going to be more like 7 inches wide. How I tell how thick I want it is when I scrunch it up and feel the thickness, and then I go to the thinner one and feel if it's about the same. Another question people have been asking is what type of fabric. I prefer a jersey knit because it has stretch to it, whereas the bed sheet would have no stretch to it. The reason I like stretch to it is because when I come and braid in to itself, I can have a little bit of pull there to pull away and pull my next strip through. Another thing I'd like to show you is how to cut one t-shirt into one continuous strip. First thing I do is fold the t-shirt almost in half, but not quite. You want a little space where you fold it not quite the whole way to the edge. So you can either use a scissors and just only cut to the fold and just a tad bit farther and then stop, or you can make it easy on yourself and use a rotary cutter. For this first cut, I'm going to make it narrower because of the fold over on the bottom. I'm going to make this one my normal, just a 3-inch wide, and I don't measure, I just eye it up. We'll deal with that piece later, and I'll show you how to make this a continuous strip. Now where your part was that was not cut into, I'm going to put that on the flat, and we're going to cut each strip as in a spiral from the edge to the first cut, and then from the second cut to the third cut, and so on. Each time it's going to be cut into a spiral. And there we have it. Okay, so now we have the top, what was left over, and we fold that exactly in half. Makes it easier if we come here and just cut that seam off. Make it straight. And now since this is a fold over, it makes a thicker edge. I don't like to work with that, so I'm going to make its own little strip. Set them aside. And up here at the neck. And now at the edge, open it up. Fold it in half. And then it's not pleasant to work with this thick neck piece, so we're just going to cut that off. And there we have a strip. And you may choose to use this as a small strip or just discard it completely. And here's my little bit of waist, and if you really wanted to, you can cut this where the seam comes together and make it its own little strip. And then here are all our strips that we've cut, plus our very long one. Other garments can be used as well, but just a little trickier on how to cut them up. It's basically the same way, but you just might have to figure it out a little bit as you go. And here you can see I made them a little thinner the width than the jersey knit because this is very thick and it'll curl nicely when it's stretched it out. And here we have long sleeves, so I will show you how to do with that. Bed sheets can also be used. I would use a different weaving technique, but it can be used in the braided way. It just doesn't have as much stretch when you go to braid it together. This type of fabric is better used in an Amish knot rug type of braid, but that will have to wait for another tutorial. So some of you have asked if you can use old t-shirts. Absolutely, you can use brand new. I like to repurpose simply so that you can keep it out of landfill, and it also is perfect if it even has a stain. Sometimes the fabric is still really good. These are the strips I just cut. When you use a jersey knit, there's no fraying on the edges and it nicely curls. And so when I start, I will specifically just stretch it on purpose so that it nicely curls around and you have this beautiful rolled in fabric. And the ends don't really, where there's a seam, but it's okay. You don't really see it in amongst all the braided. Some of you have asked about washing these rugs. They're very resilient in the washer because they're all interbraided and there's not the seam of thread to come loose when you wash it. Some of you have asked how much yardage. I have no idea, honestly. People give me t-shirts that they don't want anymore, or I just cut up as I go and separate out as the colors and start braiding. So I've used large, extra large, very small, and kids clothes. So I have no idea, and I'm sorry. I will try to get that in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Happy rugging!